Okay, so this is the situation I have going on. And one of the trees, actually several of my trees on this property and along this road, has this hole, and everybody drives by it. And I thought, hey, how about making a little like fairy slash hobbit elf little home out of this hole? And I actually already started the project before I got the epiphany that, hey, somebody else might like to see this and see how it's done. So what I did is I took a piece of cardboard and just kind of got it in here and cut out the shape of this hole with a pair of scissors, and then transpose that onto a piece of cardboard, which we'll look at here. Okay, so here's a piece, and I know I said cardboard, but it's really plywood. And I used like 1/4 inch for some reason. And I had a reason. There was a specific reason in mind when I started this, and now for the life of me I can't remember why it is. In fact, I wish I'd gone with something more like 1/2 inch or something. But to strengthen a little bit, I just glued some staking to the back of it to give it some more rigidity and allow me to be able to screw through it into the tree and stuff like that. And so you can see kind of where I mocked up a little door. Actually, I had a piece of paper where I kind of sketched out a little thing how I thought it was going to go. And so here's some of the things that I've made. This is the doorway, and so the doorway is actually 2 pieces. And I was trying to make this as rustic looking as possible. So this is a piece of eucalyptus that I had laying around that I cut from this guy. And it's basically just a eucalyptus round. We used to have a eucalyptus tree that we cut down. And so I cut it in half with the chainsaw. And I don't know if you can see how well you can see. There's really cool chain marks on there. And it did, however, I liked the roughness of the cut. What I didn't like is it left a lot of like metal smudging on here. So, and I'll tell you how I took care of that in just a second. So anyway, out of the flat piece, so I cut this in half, a piece, just the other half of this, and then I cut it, about this thick on my table saw, which was kind of sketchy. So I put the blade up as tall as it would go, basically just fed it through, and it didn't cut all the way through, so I kind of had to then turn it, finish feeding it through, turn it some more, finish feeding it through, that kind of thing. So there's that. So out of that, then I cut this is going to be the door frame, and I'm not sure, this is the rough side. So you can see this is the smooth side that the table saw cut. I didn't like it. It was a little too smooth and perfect. I really liked the chainsaw markings in there. I wanted to leave those. So what I did is I had my Dremel and a little stainless steel brush, and it was amazing. Just took it right out, all the metal smudging from the chainsaw. And so once I had the door jamb, I had a piece of furniture quality oak wood laying around, again from some other project that I did involving wine barrels. A nice and clean, very smooth. I was looking for something a little rougher for the door, but I didn't feel like cutting up another piece, and I had that laying around. So I traced, using this as a template, I just kind of traced out around it where the door is going to go. Then I cut this out. And again, using the Dremel, I first drew on here with pencil some just uneven lining. This is supposed to kind of represent individual planks of an old door. And then I took that wire wheel again, and I don't know how well we can see, but I just kind of ran it with the grain, and it evacuated some of the softer parts and left the harder parts of the wood, which I really thought gave it a cool aged look, like an old door would have, being out in the weather, untended and stuff like that. So there we'll have these 3 little things. I'm also going to put, maybe somewhere coming out of here, a little janky stovepipe. Just, kind of rickety looking, rough. I have a saying that I kind of, irregularity adds character. And so it's going to be just like a odd little bit there. I'm playing with the idea. I haven't quite decided on maybe bringing down just a little bit of a roof or something like that, or like a faux roof, maybe some shake shingles or something right here, and then still playing with what I want to use as, you know, like some kind of siding, and I pretty sure I want to use some kind of masonry. Right now the leading contender is just little pebbles that I will apply on here, mortar on here. Somehow I'm not 100% sure how that's going to work. If you know, like one idea is to just put some mesh on here and actually do it like you would a house, where you lay, you know, some mortar and you stick your little stones in there and then kind of grout them in. I've also played with cutting some slate into little squares, little exact size squares, and then just kind of doing like a brick pattern. The problem with that is I think it will look too finished and too polished, and I want this to look rustic and older when I'm done with it. So it's just an idea. I haven't landed on anything yet. So right now I want to stain these and the windowsill. I'm gonna have to kind of clean up the edges on this, get them to match, and then I'm gonna finish staining this and kind of get them in the rough place. And then we'll move on from there with the fireplace, or the little stove coming out. Okay, so what I want to do is stain this, and I'm probably going to use either a, dark walnut or golden oak, or possibly special walnut. I don't want to go too dark, but I definitely like the warmer, darker colors. But to give this a further plank look, what I originally wanted to do was just wipe into these cracks some kind of dark stain, or maybe possibly even paint. And to that end, I bought this ebony stain. And a lot of times you can just wipe it all on the wood and then quickly wipe off the surface, and in the deeper cracks it'll stay. But I didn't want to risk it staining, because this is raw wood. It hasn't been sealed or anything like that. And I didn't want to seal it because I do want to come back and stain it, and I want it to soak in the stain, like the dark walnut or whatever. So what I think I'm gonna do is, with a very fine paintbrush, I'm just gonna paint this into the cracks, and whatever overage there is, I'll wipe off or something like that, and we'll see how that turns out. This, I'm just gonna stain it as it is. I want them to be a little bit different colored, and I think just because they're a different variety of wood, that they will naturally be a different color. And then this, obviously, not obviously, you might not be able to tell, is also a piece of the eucalyptus. I just had some scraps left over. I wanted to make a window frame, and so I used that, just kind of 45'd it on my table saw. So all the tools I'm using for this are very basic things that pretty much everybody would have. Nothing special. I know I watch a lot of tutorials and guys have very specialized tools. I don't have any of those, so I just got basic stuff. Little table saw, you know, that kind of stuff. Skill saw. So this is my window frame. I also made I wanted to put a planter box underneath it, and I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to organize these things, space them out here. So I'm going to have a little planter box that I bought some artificial little flowers at Hobby Lobby that I'll put in here. And I made this out of just some scrap. Piece of 2x4 that I had laying around, again from another project. It was already stained, so I think I'll just leave that. This was I think we used some of the dark walnut on this, and so there's some areas that I'll have to clean this glue off here, which cleans up, by the way, really nicely with that stainless steel Dremel brush. Let's see if I have one I can pull it out for you. Yep, right here. This is the dude. Little stainless steel Dremel brush goes in there, and then you just, and it takes off all. I think I've already cleaned this one, and that's the good side. But it'll take off whatever glue residue, like right here. It'll just take that right off, and then I can just stain it, pop it back on here. Okay, so we're gonna try and put this dark stain in between what would be the grout lines here. So we're just gonna pop this open. Shake it up a little bit. Found me a very fine little, I need glasses for this. Don't necessarily need this piece getting any stain on it, so we'll set that over there. So any of this stain that gets on the top side, just down the crack, I'm going to try and wipe off immediately before it soaks in. So far, so good. Got dog hairs on it. Par for the course if you know my dog, Asher. He's a golden retriever. And his hairs are everywhere. So I think this is going to work. I really do. This takes a little bit of a steady hand, and more importantly, a fine, fine little brush. So we're going to give that a minute to dry, and then we're going to stain this and this piece right now. Something else I did, let me see if I can show you here. I used I want to say a cutting wheel on the Dremel to give that, let's see if you can see that, some kind of texture along the sides. Hopefully it'll catch a little bit of extra stain and stand out. Let me get the light on it just right. So we'll see how that looks. Do we want to go golden or do we want to go dark walnut? I think I'm going to try golden first and see what we get. I'm going to start with this door jamb because I don't care if it's significantly different in color to the actual door. In fact, I kind of hope it is a little bit. So right now, I like the color. Soaking in. Really nice. You can see this is some of that discoloring that I was talking about when you cut, and you won't see it because the door will be inset, but that's the kind of stuff with that little wire wheel cleans up real nice. It takes it right back down to the wood, you can't even see it. So I'm going to stain the window frame. And I'm thinking about putting some kind of, it probably won't be glass, but some kind of a plastic in here just for that sheen, so it looks, at a glance, it looks like a glass window. Maybe going black behind it. And so for that, I was kind of thinking of, I've got a bunch of old CD gem cases that I could, I think that's just about the right size. I'm not 100% sure, but that's my initial plan. It's just to crack and cut a CD gem case. You know, they're getting they used to be everywhere, but now they kind of gone the way of the dodo. But I happen to have a bunch of them sitting around from back in the day. And I'll probably also put cut some little strips of wood as a pane, you know, just the classic little cross pane. And I also was playing with the idea of some kind of shutters, building some kind of shutters for it. So we'll see. It's actually a little bit bigger than I was initially intending. I'm going to set that there. I'll set it here. So I'm going to go ahead and see what golden oak. Let's see how this turns out on the back. Looks pretty good. It's pretty similar though. Just like for comparison's sake, let's crack this open. And see how big of a difference this would make. Ooh. Pretty significant. That's dark. Dark, 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 dark.
I don't know if you can see that. I probably just got dark on you. I don't know. Kind of like it. Gonna have to wipe it off pretty quick, but I think I'm gonna go with the dark walnut.
I think hopefully it's gonna help soak into those lines a little bit.
So I think that looks good. I think that was pretty close to the look I was going for.
Pretty close. So, you know it. It turned out being pretty close to the same color after all. But anyway.
So that is the jamb and the door. I like the difference. I don't know if you can see how some portions of that eucalyptus are getting darker, some are lighter. That's the kind of variation I was hoping for.
But I think that turned out really nice. And let me show you something else I got. I was at Hobby Lobby looking for, I don't remember what originally I was there for, but I came across some really cool things. So one of the things I needed on here was coming up with some idea for a doorknob. And so different ideas I had are I actually found little knobs. In fact, I'll probably paint one right now.
They just look like, I don't know if you can see, they're just little doorknobs.
I don't know what you would otherwise use them for. But let's paint one up real quick. And I'm doing this, I'm not even 100% sure I'm going to use it. I may, after all's said and done, go with, and I'll show you what else I found. That is really cool. Really cool. It was just, I didn't know they even had these things. Actually, what I was looking for was some little like dollhouse furnishings. I thought there'd be some little kind of dollhouse stuff that I could use to accentuate it. So there, so I can stick that, drill that little hole and plug that in there. That would look cool. Or check this out. Where'd it go? This one right here. Poke this through. See what you think. I think they're tiny little drawer handles, but I could just put that on as a little handle to the door. And also I was kind of debating how I was going to put, or what I was going to use for hinges. I was planning on using copper. I had some thin copper tin. I was just going to kind of cut something out, and look at that. They've got little hinges already pre-made that are kind of
Antique bronze. Let's see if I know the lighting's kind of weird in my shop right now. It's like sunlight's going down, but just kind of antique bronze.
it was like $1, $2, $1.99 for these things. I was like, even if I don't use them, I might use them somewhere else. And I just thought they just looked really cool. One of the other things I picked up was they're little thumbtacks, but they look like antique bolts, squared off antique bolts.
We'll see. I'll open it, but I'll show you. I don't even have a plan right now for these, using them.
But if I can incorporate those somehow, I think that would be cool. And this guy, I don't know if he's gonna fit anywhere. I don't even know what it is. It doesn't even say. But again, it's the antique bronze, and it's just kind of like a little finish piece. Little triangle, kind of Celtic knotty looking thing. And I was hoping, oh, it will. Oh, that's gonna look awesome.
Right on the front of the door, like that. You see that?
Oh, that's gonna look sweet. So, another find, another like a buck, you know. And if I didn't use it here, I'd probably have some other project where that would come in handy. So, the question that I gotta wrestle with is, you know, which doorknob do I want to use? They're both kind of cool. I'll kick that around. Next, I want to sand this down. I may sand this finish off or not. I don't know. We'll see how it looks. But anyway,
I'm going to sand these corners down.
kind of get it all uniform and try and get it looking uniform, the stain uniform on there, stuff like that. Actually, I might not, now that I think about it, my plan might not be to stain that wood, but just an obnoxious bright green color or something like kind of a go in a kitschy direction. So I'll play with that
as we get to it.
Okay, so I'm getting ready to sand this. I'll probably speed this up so you don't have to waste all the time. Okay, so I just kind of took it down, rounded the edges. I'm not trying to make this perfect. That has been my goal here, is to not, make this look like it's been worn and been out there in the weather for a while. Kind of old, aged, distressed a little bit. So, but I think that'll work. So now I'm gonna maybe just touch it with some stain. I know I just said I was gonna paint it green, but I don't know. I want to leave my options open. So I'm gonna stain the whole thing, and then if later I decide to paint it, that's what we'll do. And I apologize if the camera or this is my first time shooting a tutorial of any kind, and so I'm not used to moving the camera around. Normally I just point it at me and I don't move much. So we're gonna see how this turns out, and I intend on doing another one where I have a wine barrel sitting over here, and I want to make that into a fire pit / bistro table. And so that I will make a tutorial for that. I've seen there's people who've got them out there. They're really cool looking, but I haven't seen anybody actually do a walkthrough on how to make it, and I got some questions that I'm going to have to work through. But when I get to that, that'll be the next project. I've learned some stuff regarding lighting. Probably, I'm not sure in my shop here how the lighting is now with the doors wide open. It's nice for me to see, might not be nice for you to view. I don't know. So sometimes until you download it and look at it on your computer, you don't know how it really turned out. So, all right, this is pretty dark, but it looks uniform, relatively. So there's that. Actually, that looks kind of cool. My wife just made a headboard, looks similar to that, for my kids for Christmas, and they liked it a lot. So that's going to be my flower potter for under the window. Okay, so we got everything stained, and I think I decided on the little handle instead of the doorknob. I kind of like that. And these things are just sitting here. I haven't secured them on there yet. And what I did is I'm trying different facing stones. And I talked about maybe going with some little brick pattern or something like that I thought might be too uniform. So these are just loose laid in here. But I went to the creek and just found a bunch of, I don't know, a lot of quartz and some granite and some other little stones in the creek, and laid them on there. They're all irregular size, not very uniform. So I'm not crazy about it, the overall look. So I think what I'm gonna do is get a bag of decorative stones from Home Depot and place them on there. They're differing colors. They're gonna be all kinds of various shades of gray, probably, and gray and black and stuff. But just to see what a little more unified stone shape might look like on here. I'm just not crazy about the way this looks. And then up here, remember I talked about bringing down like a little faux roof. And so these are little wedges that I made just to kind of support, and probably what I'll do is use a piece of this, which is just 1/4 inch, or no, that's even eighth of an inch luan, and I'll just make a piece that's, you know, this shape, place it on these ramps, and then over that my plan is to use, oh boy, they're around here somewhere, some just shims, the little wood shims that you use for shimming doors and stuff like that, and I'll cut them and just kind of make like fake little shake shingles out of them, trying to make them again look rough and weathered and stuff like that. I think I like that idea, but again, I'm gonna kind of place it all on here loose laid before I commit to anything. And then I still have that little stovepipe somewhere in this region is gonna come out of here. So let's see what some other stones look like laid on here. So we talked about, this is one option for the stone masonry work, which I'm not crazy about. So I bought a bag of river rock from Home Depot. It was like $4, and it's mostly gonna be roundish rocks, more in line with this. This one's kind of coarse, as you can probably see. These are going to be smooth rocks of different color. So I'll lay that out and see how that looks. The other thing I did is I made these little wedges, and I talked about the little roof thing, which I think I'm going to do. We're going to try that. The other question that I've been mulling about is how to attach this to the tree. And so I'm going to take all these rocks off here and we'll walk it down there, and I'll show you the conundrum that I'm dealing with, is how to attach this board and everything on it to that little hole. So here's the little hole that we're going to put this whole little facade on. Here's my facade. Now, my question was how to secure it once we have all the stuff on it. And so it'll fit in, let's see, back up so you can see it. It'll fit in just like that, but how to secure it. So I had some thoughts. One of them was to, like, you know, as I'm putting the bricks on there, you know, I'll have the door on here, the little window thing will be here, that little faux roof will come down out of here. I could maybe drill through this into the tree. Seeing how that sits, I think that might be not a bad idea. The other thought I had was to just leave a couple bricks off till I get it in here, and then just kind of send a nail or a screw, probably better still, in sideways and leave the head out here, just so it can't back out this way. You know what I'm saying? Just here, maybe one here. So I'm not sure. Still kind of playing with it. Maybe a combination of a couple things. Just get what you can get it to stay in there. So I'd like to be able to assemble it all in the shop, or very, very close to it, you know, 99% of it, and then come out here and set it in here and secure it into the tree just to keep it to stay. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so these are the decorative river rock stones from Home Depot. I think I like this look a little better than just the random ones that I picked up out of the riverbed. One of the things I realized is I'm gonna have to weed through and really kind of hand pick consistent size, because I don't know if you can really tell. As I was laying them on here, I mean, I filled a half of a 5-gallon bucket full of rocks. I washed them off and then started picking through them, and the further up you get, they get smaller and smaller because I was just running out of the larger rocks. So I think there's enough of the large rocks to do it. That just means I have to go through an entire bag, sort them out and hand pick them, which is fine. I may still try cutting the slate like I mentioned and just doing a little section, just kind of seeing what that little brick pattern might look like. I'd like to look at all the options before I commit to one thing. So here's that, let me walk over here. Here's the little roof section that I talked about messing with. And so these little pieces are just these guys. They're just shims that I cut a shim into three pieces, three roughly equal sized pieces. And the thicker ones I cut then in half. So like two of these might make, now those are too thin. But anyway, what I found is like just cut them directly in half, or in thirds rather. The front end, the wide end was too wide, and then the bottom end was obviously just tapers to nothing, kind of like this guy. So I end up cutting the fat end in half again to just get them all relatively the same thickness. And then over here, I took about 4 of them and stained them 4 different colors. I don't know, the lighting's kind of bad in here, so, but we have, this one is the dark walnut, I think special walnut, ebony. Actually, I was surprised how light that turned out. It looks like black on the can, and then this is just golden oak. So I'm leaning towards this guy for one of these two. I definitely think it should be like okay, bottom line is I haven't decided, but I'll kick that around, one of these guys, and then I'll cut this. And then here's what I'm gonna need to fill in this side, so I'll probably put a little wedge or some shingles going up the side, and then probably something in here as well, like a little, just a board so it just doesn't go up there. Because otherwise, if I set that up there, let's see if I can get a better thing so you can see up under there. If I leave that like that, that is just going to be a home for wasps. They will build nests, and every time you come to look at this thing, you'll have to be careful because wasps and hornets, or not hornets, but wasps will fly out of there. So that'll be a bummer. So there's that with the decorative stones. I do like it better, but let's see what the slate looks like. So I'm going to cut these pieces of slate into strips, and I've already tried a few and it's working out pretty good. And I'm just using this little, where you at? I'm just using this cheap little wet saw from Harbor Freight, and it's doing a pretty good job. So my main concern with this slate is that it would be too brittle to cut into strips, and it is brittle, and some of them are breaking, but I think I can even still use them. But it's cutting pretty well, a lot like tile. So just the tool's working just like it's supposed to. So as you can see, I cut it into nice linear little strips that I will probably go and then later cut into smaller brick size pieces and do just like a brick pattern. So here's what we got. I laid some of these out here. Obviously I've got to cut them down. I mean, I just kind of laid them over more. This is just more a proof of concept laying, and I think I like it. I think I like it a lot. I think a lot better than the two stones scenarios that I had laid out before. Yeah, I think it's going to work good. So I will continue to cut those and kind of get them rough cut in. But I think that's how that's going to work. Okay, so now I'm working on the little stovepipe that's coming out of there. And I honestly didn't have any plan for how I was going to do this, other than I figured I was going to use this tin, which is what I did. So I had this roll of tin that I used for other stuff. I don't even know what the project was. And so I kind of measured the thickness that I thought, the approximate thickness that I thought that I wanted that to be, and gave a little bit over for overlap, because initially I thought that I would roll this and secure the edges with some kind of adhesive. I hadn't really thought it through how I was going to do it, but then I had an epiphany. So I actually getting ahead of myself. So then I cut it out. And this is the piece, and it's all rolled into a circle now. But when it was flat, I just tried to manually roll, and it wasn't really getting circular. It was getting flat and squishy, and I didn't want to crumple it or anything like that because it's pretty thin. It's not really thick. And so I was like, you know what I need is a dowel or something. And I found it. I just happened to have a piece laying around, the perfect size, and so I was able to kind of roll this around the dowel, get it tight, and then just kind of roll it back and forth. And so it's in a pretty good circular, about the size that I want. Then the next thing was, you know, I've got to cut some relief cuts out of here so that it can bend at least twice, you know, so it'll go kind of come up out of the front of the building. But while I was doing that, I had the idea that instead of gluing it with some kind of adhesive, I will just staple this. I'll wrap it around there nice and tight and staple it. And so that's what I'm gonna do. So now I gotta figure out how to cut those relief cuts in here. Not sure how to do that the best way. So here's what I've ended up doing. I put those little dowels in there, wrapped it around there, stapled it on the back. This is some, I forget what it's called, but it's a 2-part putty that you mix up and it hardens. I was gonna just kind of hold these together because this one was kind of wobbly. I didn't have any JB Weld, that was what I was originally gonna use, so I used this 2-part putty and it just kind of hardens hard. Now I'll have to like file this or sand it down somehow to minimalize it. And then I made a little cap for it that'll go on, kind of like that. And then this is my hole that it will a little rough, and then that'll kind of fit on there. Now one of the other things I wanted to do was kind of age or distress this pipe somehow, and I'm not sure how to do that. I thought, well, I'll burnish it with one of those steel wheels, and all it really did was polish it up. So that wasn't gonna work. So I'll think of something else. I'll maybe try etching it with acid or something like that, roughing it up somehow. I may also just score some round things on here so they look segmented. But that's what I ended up with, and I will, like I said, I'll try and distress it and gauge it. I'm gonna just super glue. What I did is I just made a circle here, snipped it about halfway, kind of Chinese hatted it a little bit there, and just super glued it. And I'll just super glue this to, probably do it that way, to the end there, and it'll just stick up like that. I also took my window frame. I remember I mentioned I was gonna use a jewel case cover, but it was just slightly too small. So I found some other piece of plexiglass I had laying around, I cut it to fit, and so I just kind of routed out a little lip here, and I'm still not sure exactly what I think I want to put a little piece of fabric behind it to kind of look like curtains, and then I'll just paint it black. So I have some red velvet laying around from another project I did, and so maybe my thoughts are I'll just kind of like drape that red velvet behind the glass and then place it on there, and it'll look like little curtains. I think I ditched the idea. I also mentioned that I was probably going to build some shutters on here. Probably not. I just kind of like to button this up. It's been taking up my garage for a while, and so I'll have the planter here. I also chose the darker stain for the shingles, and I don't know if you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and put the shingles on, get those nailed on and stuff like that. And then the next step will be to kind of place these in place permanently. And I put the hardware on the door, went ahead and attached that. So now, then I'll attach that permanently so that once everything's in here, after I distress this, then I can start in and with the stones. So that's going to be a whole nother thing. I like the look, but that'll be another process, so we'll take a look at that. Okay, so here's where we're at. I went ahead and glued these on in place, and I did as I talked about. Made a little plastic window, put some curtains in here. I don't know if you can see it in the video. You can kind of see. I tried to, because that plastic goes about to there, so I tried to keep the glue where I glued the curtains in place. Looks like some of it got on there, but yeah, it'll be okay. I think it will be okay. So now what I want to do is, one, I want to protect the wood, the stuff that's going to be exposed to the outdoors, with urethane. So I got this at Home Depot, Helmsman. It's the indoor-outdoor urethane. And I got the spray can. I thought it'd be easier just to go around and spray it as opposed to try and paint it on. Also, and if you remember from earlier on, this is actually a piece of very thin 1/4 inch plywood that I had laying around. It was already exposed, like it's kind of weak right here. I might have to put something back here to shore that up. But the point is, it already was exposed to a little bit of moisture. So I'm going to treat it with copper green. I got some in this little spray bottle, and I'm not going to spray it on there, but I'm just going to dip a little paintbrush in here and paint it all around on this and on the back. I'll probably spray it on the back. But that will inhibit fungal growth in it because it'll be in the ground, and also stop bugs from getting into it, termites and wood-eating ants and stuff like that. So that's what I'm gonna do now. So as you can see, I've already kind of painted this the green. I did the back, I sprayed it, and I've already put a coat on here. Typical of me, I get in a hurry and I started spraying and didn't put some tape to protect this plastic. So some of that spray got on there. I'm not sure how it's gonna affect the overall look. I'm hoping that if anything, it just gives the windows an older look and not just completely ruins it. So anyway, to minimize the damage, I just put a little bit of painter's tape in there. And also, I mentioned earlier I was gonna do this and I forgot, but I cut a little just a T-frame kind of thing that I will glue in place. I'm gonna stain those to match this and then glue those in place and it's a little rough, but that's exactly how I wanted it. So there's where we're at. So I'm gonna continue to spray a few more layers of the urethane on there, and then we'll be ready for the stone. So I put several more coats of the urethane on the wood areas, and now I've loose laid the bricks in here, the stone bricks that I'm gonna use. And you can see these are the areas where I'm gonna have to custom fit one, take a square, figure out how big it needs to be, and go to the saw. Also, there's some hanging over the edge I'm gonna have to cut down and then mortar in place. Now, here's gonna be the tricky part. Since these are all gonna be custom fit, like I've got it lined up just the way, because they're all irregular size. Once I get them loose laid in place and I like the way it looks, all the ones hanging over are cut, all the little pieces are fit in here, I'm going to have to take them and number them accordingly. So I have like 18 rows, and it'll be 18-1, 18-2, 18-3, like all the way through, second row, and then I'll lay them upside down and number them. And so once I put my mortar bed in here, I'll know exactly where each one goes, and it'll fit. Otherwise, I'll get it all mixed up and nothing will fit right and stuff like that. So what we're looking at is I cut all the little edges, all the little pieces down to fit. And I was gonna put them on, I don't know if I talked about this or not, with just actual tile mortar. Just mix up a batch and put them on here like as if you were doing a countertop or something like that. And then, I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, probably because I've seen it. I have what's called a PAM glue gun. And this is not your mother's craft glue gun. This is an actual thermoplastic. It's originally designed to glue tack strip to floors on concrete that's too hard or brittle. So I have one of these. And I've used it on other things before. If it gets hot, like in California, 110 plus, it could loosen this. But I started thinking about it. This thing's gonna kind of be in the shade. It won't be in the direct heat. It's not gonna be subject to a lot of movement. So I could use this glue gun, which I'm gonna do, and it'll most likely be all right. The other thing that I wasn't sure about is with the mortar on this board, there's spots where you'll be able to see through the bricks to the wood below. Prior to me staining this with the green copper, it was just the wood color, and you could see that through the thing, and that mortar would at least give it a gray color. but because it's green, you don't really see it, and it just looks green. It kind of goes with the thing. So for sake of ease, I am going to apply these with this guy. And so as you can see, I've got them all set up. They're all numbered on the back, which is nice in case I get confused. But because I'm using the glue gun, the chances of me getting mixed up are significantly lessened. So this guy is gonna be what I go with. Okay, so you get the basic idea of how that goes.
So I won't bore you with the rest.
Okay, so I got all of them glued in place except one here and one here, because I made screw holes to screw it into the tree. And so I'm gonna glue these on after I get that screwed in place. And then I'll just like tuning. Actually, there was 2 more over here somewhere, and like an idiot, I covered them up. So that is what's going on there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this off, and let's see if I can. Oh my goodness, it's heavy. Take this off so it doesn't fall. Just want to show you what I got in here. So I've got foam that, I'm sure there's a word for it, Florist foam or something like that. And I will put little, at Hobby Lobby, I bought some flowers and stuff like that I'll cut down and make a type of a, and I'm not gonna use this whole thing. I'm just gonna cut, you know, like right there. Let's see where you at. Yeah, right there. Make some kind of arrangement. Also got like some baby's breath or something like that. And then I got these little mushrooms I'll put around the front door. And then I may or may not use this. This is like fake moss that I may use to kind of fill in the areas that have big gaps in the stone that you can really see, either like you can see the glue back there or something like that. So I'll take this apart and maybe use it just to kind of fill in those areas. Also the sides, move this stuff and I'll show you. Like I didn't run the stone all the way, or I did, but I'll put some moss like around here so you just can't see that raw edge. And then mount her up. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so it's just set in there, and as I said, oh, I gotta glue these on. This is the window frame. It's just laying there loosely. So I trimmed it with the fake moss, and these are my screw holes. I still have to screw it up, but right now it's just sitting in here. Kind of give you a basic idea. So then I'll trim the grass up a little bit to make it shorter, and I got those little mushroom things. May even make some little stones for a path. I think that looked kind of cool. But that is kind of how it looks. So like I said, I don't know if, let's see, I can zoom in. If you can see kind of where I put moss in all the little holes. It turned out really cool looking, I think. It filled in all the big gaps, anywhere where you can see the back of the board, or glue. Let's see, lighting's kind of poor. So anyway, I'm going to screw that in now and glue in the last final things, and I think I'll be pretty close to done. Okay, that is the finished deal. I end up getting some screws in the side. Let's see if you can see. Right there, and then was just able to, right there, covered up with some moss. That moss is really handy. Oh, and I see some spots that I probably should have glued. I turned the hot glue gun off. I'll get it later. I could stuff some, that's the kind of spot I'm talking about. Right in there that really could use some, a little piece of moss. There's another piece. Easy enough to do. So that is it.